I'm Scott Al Miller. It's the 19th of April, 2023. This is my vlog of daily life living in León, Nicaragua. Today, we're going to talk about how you keep your house protected if you're one of those people who live here part-time and live away part of the time, but still have a house here. So we're going to get to that right after the bump. Bounce. Today is Wednesday, and not a lot to report, just a normal week, doing normal things, hanging out with my daughters in the evening as much as I can. We've been watching How I Met Your Mother. Liesel saw some of this when she was little, and we're having a really good time going through and watching it all one right after another, now that she's older and can really appreciate the material. And it's both still a, wow, it's loud out here. It's both a really great show on its own, and for her it has this cool nostalgia that she really enjoys watching shows that we watched when she was really little, when she watched with us. Oh, people want to be on the show, so hold on a second. Hola! It's also a tricyclo coming by, so I grabbed that as well so you can see what it's like. See? Hola! Oh, and the doggy. Oh, and the doggy. She really likes having these nostalgic shows from her childhood. It's a lot of fun. So today's topic is we're going to talk about how you protect your house if you're not going to be around. And this comes up a lot because there's a ton of expats. And honestly, there's a ton of Nicaraguans who have a second home. I mean, this is true in any country, anywhere, right? But in the United States, you definitely don't have double home ownership in the same rate that you have in a place like Nicaragua because homes are so expensive. Even those who are relatively affluent rarely can afford a second home. And when you do, it's often a really cheap, like lake house or something that you're not too worried about. You're not storing expensive stuff there. But living here, the number of people who have a second home is extremely high. It could be an affluent Managua who wants to have a country house outside of León, or an affluent Grenadian who wants to have an oceanfront property. Those are really common. When you go to the beaches, almost every house along the beach is somebody's second home. And if expats come here, the majority of expats don't live here full time. They live somewhere else, and they come here during their winter, for example. Or they just come here part-time when they're on vacation and they need to go home to work. Whatever the process is, that's how it tends to happen quite frequently. So the number of people who have to deal with second homes here is very, very high, and there's kind of standard ways to handle it. And one of the dangers of having so many people have second homes is that, and they're waving but the camera's not pointing towards them, is that you have a lot of people who know that there are empty houses all over the country, and often because of how they're used, not so much the beach houses, but definitely the quintas and city apartments and stuff, they tend to be pretty well stocked with things, big TVs, nice furniture, whatever. And so there's a certain amount of risk that someone's going to break into your home. And since they know you're not there, it's not violent crime, which we really don't have much of here, but it is crimes of opportunity. And there's a lot of opportunity with an essentially abandoned house. Not that it's truly abandoned, but you know what I mean. Months go by, someone could get in and squat in there. They could watch your TV, use your electric, and then take off with your television before you get back, and then you'd be without all your stuff. So you don't want that to happen. How do you deal with it? Well, the common thing here, especially, remember, we have a lot of heat that causes problems, and we have a really heavy rainy season, and that causes problems. In the United States, you get different issues, right? Snow and the extreme temperature changes. Those cause different types of problems. You worry about pipes freezing in the winter, for example. You don't worry about that here. You can turn off your heat. Nothing's going to fall apart. In fact, no one has heat. Like, that was a funny thing to say. So the way that it's typically approached here, if you have a small city apartment, well, you'll probably just lock it up. Like, that's fine. But if you have a house, if you have something of any size, generally it is really common, to the point of nearly being an expectation, that the house will have quarters in it or near it for staff to live in. And a really common approach is to then have staff that live at the house. They make sometimes, depending on what their duties are, they may make a small salary, such as minimum wage or so, or if they're living there rent-free full-time and they're not expected to do anything, you're just providing housing and they stay there for you. It may be extremely cheap, right? You may pay them $50 a month or something, I don't know, and then they go about their lives and have a normal job. They're just getting free housing in exchange for keeping an eye on the place. And that's a pretty good deal if that's what you want and don't want anything done, because you pay almost nothing and you simply have someone, hopefully that you trust, who lives on property and has a concern for keeping it safe and secure, because they don't want their stuff stolen either. But what most people do is not opt for someone living there for free, because they want more done, and honestly, it's not that expensive. So pretty typically what's done is somewhere in the $200 to $300 a month range, hiring a person who can act as security and can act as a handyman and lives on property. And in some cases, you can get a family who lives there. Maybe one person works somewhere and the other person stays at the house all the time, or maybe they both do work around the house, and then obviously you would pay a bit more. But because you're providing a place to live for free, and because they generally are going to have the option of the run of your house and estate, depending on what you have there, when you're not there, which adds additional benefit. For example, they may be able to use your television when you're not there. Maybe they sit around and, you know, fill up your fridge with their food and cook on your oven if you're gone for 6 months. Why do you care? Let them have the place. Huge benefit to them and cost you essentially nothing. And you have this really great relationship. And then for 6 months, they just live in whatever, casita or staff quarters or whatever. And people are used to, remember, living outdoors and doing things outdoors. So the fact that they don't have a big flashy house is not necessarily a big deal. And in some cases, for example, we have a chef and she lives on the property. She gets the run of the house. We're here most of the time, but she has a nice room. She has private space. It's a separate building. She can use the house whenever she wants. She can cook and store food in the house. She does cook during the day, and she gets a lot of benefits out of it. And for us, it's just a separate building that we would be unused anyway. So it adds a lot of security because she's there around the clock and able to keep an eye on kids, dogs, whatever. There's always an extra adult around. It's really a big benefit for everyone. The wind picked up significantly, so I had to move down to where there was a lot less wind. I do have to point out the battery on the camera today is holding up really well, or I lost everything that I just recorded because it's showing at 100%, which makes absolutely no sense. I've been outside for at least 10 minutes. Questioning that, but hopefully everything's working fine. So the really common thing to do is to just hire someone who's going to live at your property, or is going to be a caretaker of your property. Maybe they don't live there, but living there is often best because they're there even when they're asleep. You know, if something happens, they're going to wake up, be able to deal with stuff. But having a handyman or someone who's handy in general can be important because there's almost always something that you want to have done. And if they're just doing security, well, they're probably not doing anything. If you have a really large estate, there's a possibility that you're going to have a ton of work that needs to be done, and they're going to be really, really busy, but you're also going to want someone to wander around a lot, and maybe you want someone else doing handiwork, and you may want multiple people. But if you have a large estate, maybe you can afford it. If you have a smaller place, then, you know, just making sure that they're keeping the pump working, that things are staying dusted, that, you know, the television still works, the electricity is still on, the air conditioning is maintained or whatever. You have someone to do all those things. So when you get there, you know everything works. Otherwise, you have a real risk that you're going to get back to your house and be spending your time dealing with getting things repaired, updated, or whatever. And that's probably not what you want to be doing if you're a part-time liver in the area, right? Well, what's that called? You want to be able to arrive in Nicaragua and enjoy your house. And if you really think about what $200 a month might cost, that's really not that much, especially considering you're getting security, potentially someone who's going to do a bit of maintenance, maybe even actual construction and like put in new tables or something. And they're going to maintain the electric, keep the place safe, not just secure, but safe from electrical fires and those kinds of things. They're going to be there to talk to the police, talk to the fire department, whatever. Not only when you're not there, but when you are there, right? They're not going to disappear. They're going to still be there. So they provide security for you and your family as well, potentially. And they're going to fix things when you're there, or you're going to come up with projects for them to do, whatever. That's a really popular approach that's incredibly effective, and it creates a job. This is a full-time job for someone that helps the economy significantly. So this is really a good thing to do, really a good approach to securing your house. So that is what most people do. That is, if you have a place, it is completely expected that you will have a full-time live-in staff person who lives on property and maintains the house at least to a minimum level, oversees any vendors you may need to have, and keeps it secure and keeps an eye on everything when you're not there. You may have noticed how hazy it is behind me. I'm going to turn the camera around so you can see the sun here. Look at how hazy this is. We're heading towards sunset, but obviously it's not that low. And if you watch some of my videos over the last week, you will have noticed that it's pretty hazy, but this is much hazier than it has been. This is extreme. This is pretty interesting, so it's worth talking about. Why is it so hazy at this time of year? And it's honestly really beautiful, but it's not moisture in the air. This is actually dust, and it feels very dry and dusty, and everything in the houses is very dusty, and hopefully the wind isn't too bad for the microphone here. But so what this is, we have the same thing. This happens all the way from Central South America all the way up to this region, at least up through Honduras, I'm sure. This is actually the dust from the dust storms in the Sahara Desert. In Africa, in North Africa, you get these huge storms. I mean, North Africa is big, way bigger than anyone ever really thinks that it is. And that whole region gets these big windstorms at this time of year, and it picks up all that, the nutrient-rich dust from the desert, puts it in the air, flies it over the Atlantic, drops a lot of it on the Atlantic Ocean, and that provides tons of the nutrients for algae and other things living in the Atlantic Ocean, but tons more of it makes it over to the continent. Now, Brazil gets the most because it's so far east that the distance the dust has to travel is not nearly as far, and that is what provides the nutrients that powers the Amazon River basin, that insanely dense jungle down there. Now, of course, having a lot of water also matters, but the dust gives it a nutrient base so that it's able to have that really hardy plant life. Well, Nicaragua and Honduras share the world's second largest wild jungle, and we're getting the same effect. So this is normal here for this time of year. This is our nutrients coming in dust form and creating this thick haze. There's no clouds, not a cloud to be seen in the sky. I don't know if you can see this. There's nothing, but it's so hazy that sun is like that. It's crazy. And we got a similar effect when we lived on Crete in Greece, because that is right off the African continent, right? We were really close. So once in a while, we would get the dust storms coming from Africa or coming from slightly, like that, from Asia Minor kind of area. And it was really interesting. And you had to be careful because you get pelted like an actual sandstorm. Here, it's purely really super fine dust. So it's less like sand and more like crushed up earth. Like, there's a reason why it's really nutrient rich, because it's like soil that's gotten really dry and just got picked up, and it's being carried by the wind and coming down all over the place. And as the rains come, that's going to bring this all down. We did have, when I'm filming this, we had a sprinkle yesterday, like 2 minutes, just a few drops, but that stuff brings that nutrients down onto the earth really heavily and does so much for the crops here. So here in Nicaragua, I had to cough there just to prove a point about how dusty it is. Here in Nicaragua, we have this combination of these nutrients coming in from Africa, which gives us really rich soil, combined with a massively active volcanic zone. And volcanoes take all these nutrients from deep in the earth and throw them up in the air and bring it down in the form of ash and lava flows. And so we have so much just non-stop nutrient turnover here. It's an amazing agricultural zone because of that. We have a really great natural supply of nutrients coming all the time. So a lot of fields don't get turned over unless they're the cane fields, which suck out the nutrients really quickly. The other question that was asked in regards to security is, can you have a security camera system, and how would that work? And the answer is absolutely, yes, you can. Some of the examples is we go to Costco and get the Swan systems. These are the more legacy, where you have the old wires that go through the building and they tie into a box, and that can go online and you can look on your phone and look at stuff. So you have internet-based cameras, but the cameras themselves are a little bit more antique in a way, but it is a modern system and it works really well. And loads of businesses use those here because you're able to buy them at Costco and it's very cost effective. I also just happened to, over the weekend, actually that's coming up in a couple days, I'm going to go to the Me store in Managua, and they have super modern Xiaomi camera systems that are available there. So if you want to go with something really, really modern, they've got that. And they've got the a little bit older systems like Swan, and you have options, and all the ones that I'm aware of, I'm sure old ones exist, but of all the ones I've seen in stores or seen anyone purchase with any recency, is that a word? Anyone who has recently purchased one, recency, I believe that's what we're looking for. They're all able to go online. So regardless of which one you might buy, you're going to be able to, one way or another, access that and view your cameras and stored videos remotely. And of course, you may put in just a little one if you have just an apartment, or something really big if you have an estate and you need to like get different views and see different things. You have a lot of options, and being able to keep an eye on things when you live remotely is absolutely doable. So internet here is really good. So the things you would do, keep your power on, obviously keep water on, keep your internet on, and all those things have costs. So, but that's generally the case with anywhere you're going to have a second home or a home that you bounce in and out of. You're going to have utilities stay on. Now, of course, you can turn your power is going to go to almost nothing if you're not living there. If you have someone who's working there for you, maybe you work out some power sharing with them, but generally you're just going to pay their power. But so your expenses may be that you're going to keep electricity on, you're going to keep internet on. Decent internet here is about $35 to about $80. That's kind of the range you'll normally pay. So not too expensive, and like water and electric bills will go to almost nothing if you're not here. They're pretty cheap even when you are. And then $200 more or less, maybe $250 if you get a good handyman that's also security, and you're looking at having a really good mechanism for your house being watched over and you being able to see how things are remotely. You can also have door sensors, window sensors, and those kinds of things. Those are not so popular here, but certainly you can put them in and have security systems like that as well. So you get an alert, cameras, you can look at your cameras when an alert goes off and see what's going on, have the phone numbers of neighbors and things like that. But yes, we have mechanisms, and it's very expected that you will use them because people need to keep a watch on their houses, and empty houses are a very normal thing. And Nicaraguans who live in another city and need to keep a watch on their house are going to be doing the same things as you. They're worried about people breaking in and stealing their TV or whatever. They don't want to have to bring all their furniture with them every time they come. They want to be able to have a video game system in the house and whatever. So this is a very normal approach. You'll find that both expats and locals do it, and you're really covered pretty well. And these systems are not super expensive. They're going to be more or less the same price as entry-level systems in the United States. You don't need anything super fancy. The ones that I mentioned, Swan and from the Me store, Xiaomi systems, are really good options, I think. I believe you're able to get some more upscale commercial products like Unify, but those are hard to get in the United States right now. So I don't know how good the supply of that is here, but they should exist if you hunt around. And I have seen a few other things in stores. It's not something that I look for very often, so I'm not super aware of what it is, but I did happen to see some this week that looked really interesting. And I know there's some that we use all the time, and they work quite well. So your options are there, and you should have no problem finding something that meets your needs at a price that makes sense for you. And that peace of mind is a big deal. Thanks for joining me. Please remember to like and subscribe if you like to support the channel. Just go up here. We got a link across the screen to buy me a coffee. It's buymeacoffee.com/Scott Allen Miller, and that comes directly to me and helps so much and make everything on this channel possible. Get down in the comments, ask your questions. Thank to Jerry who asked this question today. Ask away, get involved, have a conversation while there's a lot of traffic all of a sudden, and let me know how things are going. Hopefully you guys watched the premiere and liked that a few days ago on Monday morning. That was exciting to get to talk to some of you in real time. Just a really cool thing. We had about 45 people join us live. That was fun. We'll do that again, maybe do an afternoon one sometime coming up, so that we can get a different group of people, because I know that was tough for a lot. And as always, share this on social media, tell your friends about the show, and as always, I will see all of you tomorrow.